Hi, I'm Dustin Abbott, and I'm here today to give you my standard review of the brand new Sigma 35mm f2.DN lens. This is available for Sony FE or Leica L mount full-frame mirrorless cameras. Now this is one of a new series. The series started with kind of a bit of an oddball lens that I reviewed over a year ago, and that was the 45mm f2.8. And I call it an oddball lens because at the time it looked different than anything else that Sigma was making, and it seemed to be going a different direction than anything else that Sigma was doing at the time. And so I thought it maybe was a one-off that they were making, maybe a kit lens for their new FP camera or something like that. And maybe some of that was true, but it seems like Sigma was kind of testing the waters maybe to see if there was a market for a different kind of lens. And in this case, they call it the I series. And so that 45mm f2.8 is part of this series, along with the 35mm f2 that I'm filming on right now, a new 65mm f2, a beautiful lens that I'll be reviewing shortly. It's debuting at the same time. And then later on, about a month and a half down the road, we'll also see a 24mm f3.5 as a part of this series. So the I series is designed around those who really value a more kind of tactile experience, that really love premium made lenses that not just operate well, but feel special, like they're engineered for those that care rather than those that are looking for a throwaway type product. This is for those that maybe have some nostalgic love for some vintage lenses that were made all of metal and really had some fine craftsmanship as a part of it. And I think in many ways you're getting, if you're that kind of person, with this new I series, you're kind of getting the best of both worlds, because you're not just getting that kind of old school sensibility when it comes to the mechanical performance of the lens and the physical design, but you're also getting modern optical performance and a lot of good there that we'll hit on in today's review. Now, if you want all the nitty-gritty when it comes to optical performance and more samples, a closer look at build and all the features, then I recommend that you take a look at the definitive review. It's a longer format and I cover everything in more detail. Today, however, we're going to hit the highlights. In those highlights, that includes, as I've said, a really beautiful build quality. And so as you can see, everything is made out of metal here, up to and including the lens hood. Everything is really, really finely crafted, and so what you end up with is a really precision engineered piece that feels great in the hand. It does have a gasket for weather sealing at the lens mount. However, there aren't any internal seals that I can see beyond that according to any diagram. Beyond that, there is an AF/MF switch on the barrel that allows you to quick and easily switch between autofocus and manual focus. There is a really beautiful aperture ring that has really precise 1/3 stop detents, or an option to switch it into an automatic mode if you prefer to not mess with aperture. There's no way to declick it that I can see, and so if you're a video person, you're just going to have to deal with the detents if you purchase this lens. The other thing, however, about both the aperture and the manual focus ring, and something I noted with the 45mm, is that there's almost a cine lens type aesthetic here, to where they are raised and ribbed in such a way that it's going to be really easy to fit gearing onto them. And so if you're someone that cares about that kind of thing, then this might be a lens that works well for you in that way also. The manual focus ring, you can tell that, while it's focused by wire, they've really worked to give you a great manual focus emulation. And so it has a nice degree of damping. It just feels like you're actually controlling something as opposed to just, spinning endlessly. And so it's a nice manual focus experience as well. Up front, we have a 58mm front filter thread. And as I've noted, everything is in metal, including the filter threads. They actually include two different lens caps. And one of those is, your typical pinch cap, but then they also use a magnetic cap that takes advantage of the all-metal construction, and they have an optional lanyard type accessory where you can easily pop that magnetically onto the lanyard on your backpack or, something similar, and so that you can, easily take that on and off if you're out backpacking or, or just, out in the field shooting in some way. The lens itself weighs in at 325 grams. Now that's a little bit heavier than the Sony 35mm f1.8, not by much, by 35-40 grams. And it's considerably heavier than the Samyang 35mm f1.8 that I recently reviewed. And you know, that's mostly because it's an all-metal construction. Its build is much nicer than either of those other lenses that I've mentioned. The overall dimensions are 70 millimeters in diameter, and that's, again, mostly because of those raised threads that I mentioned. And the lens itself is about 67.5 millimeters in overall length. And so it is a nicely compact lens that is quite similar to both the Sony and Samyang lenses in terms of its overall dimension, maybe a little bit wider in diameter for those reasons that I've just mentioned. But overall, very, very nice. There are 9 rounded aperture blades, and as you can see, it maintains a nice circular aperture. Now, it doesn't have quite as high a magnification figure as, say, the Sony lens. It can focus down, you know, reasonably close figure, which is useful, but not as high as what the Sony figure is. And I find that if you stop down to f2.8, it really adds a lot of punch to the up-close focus quality, although it's still pretty nice, as you can see, even if you're shooting, you know, wide open there. As far as the autofocus goes, we have a stepping motor that is very quiet, it is very smooth, and it is very accurate in my test. And so let's take a quick look at how it does for video focus pulls. So good stuff there. As you can see, it is quiet and smooth and confident in locking on as it moves between subjects. And I found that in real-world use, I had quick, you know, accurate autofocus. Seemed to do a good job of picking out even, you know, up-close objects. Sometimes I find some lenses on Sony kind of struggle with that, but I thought that this lens did a better than average job on that. And my images that I got were nicely, accurately focused, and so nothing to complain about. IAF tracking was good as well, and as you can see from watching this video footage, it's doing a good job of tracking me, even though I'm shooting wide open at f2 for this video segment. So let's talk about the image quality for a second. Overall, I actually really like what we have got out of here. There's only one negative attribute that I can point to. There's a tiny amount of barrel distortion, not really a big deal, but there's more of vignette, and I would say more vignette than what I saw on either the Sony or Samyang 35mm f1.8 lenses. You know, it is correctable, but I would say it reaches close to 3 stops in the corner, and so it does require a fair bit of correction, and I would consider that to be the weakest optical link here. The good news, however, is the lens is very sharp across the frame from f2 on. In fact, it is sharper than either the Sony or Samyang lenses, and as you stop it down, I would say it maintains an advantage. It is extremely sharp from f2.8 on, and so with high contrast, great detail, great color, a lot that I really like about the optical performance. And despite being very sharp, in fact, I'm told by Sigma's engineers that it competes actually with 35mm f1.4 art in terms of sharpness at equivalent apertures. But I also think that the bokeh quality is really nice. Now, don't get me wrong, you're not going to have the ability to create as much bokeh as what you can with an f1.4 lens. However, if you're using it in an advantageous situation, the bokeh quality is, I think, a little bit creamier, a little bit smoother, and a little less busy than what I saw from either Sony or Samyang on that note. And so optical performance is really strong. Aberrations are very well controlled, and again, superior to the other options on that. Although the Sony is closer in that performance, there's a lot of good that is going on here optically. And so at the end of the day, if you're looking for a lens that, you know, maybe you want a discrete lens for street, I think this is a great option. If you're someone who, you know, wants to buy lenses and use them for a long time, I feel like this is a great option because it's so beautifully made, and I think it'll just give you a lot of, if you're a person that takes joy out of build and design, then I think that this is a lens that could give you that kind of joy. I think that optically, I like it better, and so as a complete package, I like it better than either the Sony or Samyang f1.8 options. and it is actually priced similarly, basically identically to the Sony. And so that means that the Samyang remains the value proposition. It's going to be priced about $300 cheaper, and that is a major consideration to be sure. The Sigma lens is coming to the market at $700 US, and so right now the Sony's on a little bit of a discount. It seems to have been there for a while, and that's the price point it's selling at right now. But again, I think you're actually getting a nicer, higher performing lens in the Sigma than what you are on the Sony front. So at the end of the day, I think I find it very easy to give this lens a high recommendation. It's one that I'm personally really intrigued in and would strongly consider adding it to my own kit in the future. I'm Dustin Abbott, and if you look in the description down below, there is linkage to my full text review, also to an image gallery if you want to see those photos for a little bit longer. Beyond that, there's also linkage there to follow me on social media, to become a patron, or to sign up for my newsletter. And if you haven't already, please click that subscribe button right here on YouTube. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.